to Crime and Court. My name is Heather, and this is day 2 of the Karen Reed trial. I'm really bummed because I streamed on Monday. I streamed live after the trial. I did a recap and went through the opening statements and did, showed the majority of the witnesses, some of their testimony. And for whatever reason, my computer's being slow. Everything was like out of sync, so it's pretty much unwatchable. So I apologize. I might redo that one if I have time. I'm not sure, but at least I wanted to get day number 2 in for you. And I'm going to do them pre-recorded because for some reason when I go live, it like really messes up my computer. If anybody can explain to me why that is, or if they can explain to me how I can get a faster computer, that would be, or make my computer faster, I should say. Yeah, that would be great. If you've got comments below, that could provide some assistance with that. But if not, that's okay too. Just stick around, and we're going to watch some testimony from, this is day 2. We've got Officer Stephen Seraph on the stand. He's now back for cross-examination. We left off on day 1. He was the first officer to arrive on scene. He also showed some, his vehicle cam, what is it called? Not body cam, but you know what I mean, his mobile, or his, from his dashboard cam. That's what it's called. Thank you for everyone who was trying to send it to me telepathically. So on his dashboard cam, we see him pull up. We watched some of it, but you probably couldn't see it because it was unwatchable. But in the dashboard cam, we see Karen running around and screaming frantically, and we did not see any real reactions from Jen McCabe other than engaging in conversation with law enforcement there, making it her mission to make sure that she controlled the narrative, in my humble opinion. But let's get started. So this is Alan Jackson on Karen's defense team is going to be doing the cross-examination, and we've got, like I said, Officer Stephen Seraph on the stand for cross-examination. So I'll just let him do the, yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Good. I thought I was closer. Here we go.
Is there anything that you would like to change or amend or modify about your testimony yesterday that you thought about overnight?
No.
Did you discuss your testimony with any person between the time you got off the stand yesterday and coming back to the courtroom?
No.
Officer Sheriff, I want to ask you a question about, or a couple of questions about something called a dispatch log. You know what a dispatch log is?
Yes.
What is a dispatch log? Can you describe to the jurors?
Just notes saying what time calls come in, and sometimes a short synopsis of what happened on the call.
It's an official document generated by the Canton Police Department.
Yes,
Correct?
those are dirty.
And it's kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
It's created at or near the time of the event that it's recording?
Yes.
And it's supposed to be accurate?
Yes.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, what it has is the dispatch details of the event that's in question. Whatever officers show up, what time they show up, the order in which they show up, the location to which they're dispatched, things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Have you looked at the dispatch log in this case?
No, I have not.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
This has been pre-marked as Exhibit 27. Take a glance at that and tell me if you recognize that document.
Yes, sir.
How do you recognize it?
It looks like the log in question.
Oh, okay. So that's the dispatch log for what date?
The 29th.
Do you see your name somewhere on that dispatch log?
Yes.
To the right, one of the 3 officers that was called to the scene?
Yes.
And that looks like the dispatch log for the call out that you were testifying about yesterday. Is that right?
That's correct.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
May I publish this as we
Yes.
discuss it? That is really small font. I'm going to make I approach one more time.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is not an icon test.
That I would not.
I stand, I should say. Oh, look at that. The magic of technology. All right. You can either look up on the screen or look at the dispatch log that's in front of you. I'll try to look at the one on the screen, but my eyes aren't that great either. If you look to the right, there appear to be 3 entries for the dispatch of the officers that were on the scene about which you testified yesterday, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, it has this dispatch log shows that you, and then Officer Mullaney, and then Sergeant Good, all arrived to 32 Fairview that morning within 7 seconds of each other, correct?
That's what it says, yes.
It actually has Officer Mullaney arriving first at 6:09:26. You see that?
Yes.
And you see that it also has 3 seconds later at 6:09:29 you arriving. Is that right?
6:29 it says. Excuse me, it's 6:09, yes.
6:09 and 29 seconds.
Yes, I'm sorry, yep.
That's okay. And then it has Sergeant Good arriving 4 seconds after you at 6:09 and 33 seconds, correct?
Sure, yep.
So all 3 of you, according to the official document generated by Canton Police Department for this event, has Officer Mullaney arriving first, you arriving second, Sergeant Good arriving third, all within 7 seconds of each other, correct?
Correct.
That is completely false, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, you looked at your dispatch, your dash cam, correct? And clearly, we saw it yesterday. You arrive, and there's nobody else on scene.
Correct.
That was at about 6:10 a.m. that you arrived, correct?
So not the 6:09:29?
About that, yes.
And then Officer Mullaney actually arrives after you about 6:11 a.m. Is that right?
Yes.
And Sergeant Good does not arrive, according to your own dash cam, until about 6:16.
These are
quarter after 6.
all wrong.
Yep.
All right. So right off the bat, the official Canton Police Department dispatch log, one of the first documents generated in any investigative event, that's completely wrong, right?
The times are, yes.
Well, the times and the orders, right? I mean, not only did Officer Mullaney not arrive first, you arrived first.
That's
and
correct.
then he arrived.
Sure.
So that's 2 things that are wrong about just that, correct?
Sure.
And then it has Sergeant Good arriving 4 seconds after you, which is also incorrect.
Yep.
He didn't arrive until about 6 or 7 minutes after you, right?
Sure.
All right. Have you reviewed this document in the past?
Yes? No.
You've never seen the dispatch log?
No.
Did you ever seek to make sure that the dispatch log that's so important and so vital in an investigation was actually accurate before it was turned over to the defense, for instance?
No, I didn't.
Nope.
But without that dispatch log, without your dash cam, we would be relying on your dispatch log to be true and accurate. Is that right?
Other than what I'm saying that would happen, correct.
And do you think it's accurate otherwise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in order, no. It's not. Not in order, no.
Other than
In
the
time.
order and the time that the officer's responding, is it correct in all other respects in your mind?
Can you rephrase?
Sure.
Say it one more time.
Let's take away the order and the time that the officers responded. Ignore that. Is the dispatch log otherwise accurate?
Yes.
Take a look at the left-hand column where it's highlighted in green.
I'm going to speed this up just to a 1.25. I know you guys all hate when I speed it up. I just want to get through. I feel like it just drags sometimes, like getting through some of the questioning. So I'm going to do a 1.25. If you feel like that is too fast, you can go to the gear icon on your window, your YouTube video, and slow it down. I just feel like I listen to everything like on 1.5, 1.75. So to me, this is slow. Real life is slow to me.
What's that address?
Highlighting green?
On the screen, it's highlighted.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, I don't see.
I don't have the document.
That's okay. It says 32 Fairview.
Did you arrive to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
You arrived to 34 Fairview Road,
That's correct. Yep.
So that even the location on the dispatch log is faulty. Is that right?
Sure, yep.
May I approach you?
Yes.
The wrong address. And it is believed when we listen to the 911 video that Jen McCabe left. You know what? I wonder if I have it still. I might. Probably not. Hold on one second. Let me. Okay, so that's obviously not what I want. Okay, I do have the 911 call. Should we listen to it? Just to remind ourselves. You know, I think, okay, so let me put myself back on the screen first before I play it. So honestly, you can hear Jen McCabe. So the 911 call that I have, it's not the official 911 call. This is the 911 call that was released. It's an audio from John's voicemail. So Karen was, as they're driving around trying to look for John that night, Karen's calling him, and as she sees him, his voicemail picks up, but she throws the phone inside the car. And she's screaming, I see him, and she like runs to him. But Jen McCabe stays in the car and she calls 911. So from that voicemail on John's phone, we can hear some of the 911 call. We also hear wiper blades because remember it is snowing, so you hear that in the distance. But you hear Jen McCabe saying there's a man in the snow. And like really, you know, very monotone and like unemotional about it. But you also do hear her, I believe, say the address. And it's quiet though, because it's a recording of a recording. But, well, you know, because it was on his voicemail. But anyways, so it's faint, but it almost does sound like she gives the wrong address. So it might even start with Jen McCabe trying to give an incorrect address just because she didn't want it connected to her sister and brother-in-law. So let's play it real quick. I do have it. Whoops, that's not it. Here we go. Playing. There we go. Nope, that's May. So that's a different, okay. I don't have it here. Oh man, I thought I did. This is, okay, that's Sadie Beecham. That was a different trial I was doing. Sorry guys. I do have it. I just don't have it loaded in here right now. I apologize. I got us all wound up about it. Let me see if I can get that loaded. Or at least, you know, where do I have the audio? Anyways, you guys continue watching this, and I'm going to see if I can find it so we can listen to the 911 call. I'm trying to remember where I have it.
You testified at a grand jury in April.
Hold on, I'm opening a folder. Just got to
At
move
that
it.
grand jury, do you remember telling the grand jurors what address you actually responded to?
The lights, please.
Don't recall. I probably, what I said.
Refresh your recollection if you took a quick glance
Sure.
at a copy of your grand jury testimony. May I approach you, Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Probably don't have
Officer Sheriff, I've done you the favor of highlighting a page on page 9. Where did you indicate to the grand jurors that you actually
It
arrived?
says 35 Fairview.
I know what it says. I'm asking if it refreshes your recollection that you actually testified under oath that you responded to 35 Fairview Road.
Yes.
And that is incorrect as well, isn't it?
Yes.
May I approach you, Honor?
Yes.
Have you reviewed any of the other officers' reports that relate to your dispatch out to the location that you've been testifying to?
No, I did not.
Did you ever review Sergeant Good's report?
No.
Are you aware that have you ever discussed with Sergeant Good that he wrote in his official report that you responded to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
And of course, we just talked about the fact that the dispatch log.
I can't find it, and you know what? I just cleaned out some files because trying to speed up my computer, so I don't think I have the 911 call. I'll see if I can find the link so we can go grab it and play it.
Lists 32 Fairview Road and not 34 Fairview Road, correct?
Correct.
So none of the initial police reports, not the dispatch log, not your police report, apparently not Sergeant Goods, list 34 Fairview Road as the actual location where you responded that morning, correct?
As far as I know, yes. Yes, sir.
Was there an effort on your part or anybody else's, to your knowledge, to mask the actual address
Oops,
of
there
Brian
we go.
Albert's house as
That's
34
much
Fairview Road?
No. No.
All those were just mistakes,
Yes.
over and over and over.
Yes.
Repeated
You made
mistakes.
contact with the victim and the women that you described yesterday. Did you see any evidence that any of the women had been engaged in life-saving measures?
Yes.
What did you see?
It appeared that Karen Reed was doing mouth-to-mouth on John O'Keefe.
You saw, I don't want to get too graphic, but you saw blood on her face?
Yes, I did.
You saw blood on his face?
That's correct.
You saw blood in her hair?
No, I didn't see anything.
You didn't notice that?
No, I didn't notice that.
Okay. But certainly blood on her face from having engaged in some sort of CPR activity?
Yes.
Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, you said?
It looked like it, yes.
Okay. You also saw Carrie Roberts seemingly assisting with chest compressions, is that right?
I'm asking a question.
Sorry?
Objection? There's just no
No,
question.
no, you can ask it. The question hasn't been asked yet. Finish the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you also see Carrie Roberts seemingly assisting in chest compressions?
I don't remember who exactly it was, but it appeared that somebody was doing.
What about
Crunches.
the third woman, Jennifer McCabe?
They were all around the body.
Did you see Jennifer McCabe ever engage with John O'Keefe as he lay on the ground and assist in any life-saving measures? Did you witness that?
I don't recall.
But you do recall my client engaged.
Yes.
So Karen was trying to save John's life. He does not recall if John McCabe was or not. But as we see in the dash cam, she does not. I found the recording. I really want to just play it on here because there we go. It's the windshield wipers.
Yes, I need someone to take 34 Smith, 34 Fairview Road, Vietnam. There's a man passed out in the snow.
Whoops.
Yeah.
So she did say 34. I heard 34. Let's go back a couple seconds and play it again.
Yes, I need someone to take 34 Smith, 34 Fairview Road, Vietnam. There's a man passed out in the snow. Yeah, I don't know why he did that. I think he's dead. So, like, okay. I know. Where's the blanket? I don't see blanket, Carrie. Yes, I need someone.
You hear Karen saying he's freezing, screaming it. Oh, what happened?
Yes, you're loading season. Yes. John is 46 years old. I don't know. He got out of the car and it could be an hour. Is he Carrie? Is he
hear that?
I don't know. I know I'm on the phone with the ambulance. I know, honey, I know. Get off. Sorry, you gotta get off. Sharon, stop. Get my Sharon, stop. You gotta stop. You're not helping. Okay?
All right, so yikes. There she tells this dispatcher he's 46 years old. How does she, like, okay, the person must have asked, how do you know him? Nothing. She didn't say anything like, this is my friend, it's a Boston police officer, nothing. It was just, there's a man passed out in the snow. And we're supposed to believe that she's just finding out about this now. Miss Houselong to Diane Cold is just finding out about this now, when she acts calm, cool, and collected on the scene and on the 911 call. I'm just making observations. I'm not insinuating anything. But that is... the other thing I wanted to say. So she tells the dispatcher he was 46, and then she says something about, I don't know, an hour or so. So did the dispatcher say, how long has he been out in the snow? An hour? How does Jen know that? I believe he probably only was out there for a short time, because at 3-something, that's when the Ford Edge was parked there, when Lucky Lawford was doing his second rounds, and he's off Ford Edge, parked in the same spot where John was. First time he went by, no car, no body, nothing. And he said he always made sure to take special care in that area, because there was the flagpole and bushes and fire hydrant. So he always checked that area visually multiple times before he passed through it. So he would know. There was nobody at 2, and at 3-something, that was a little after 3, he saw Ford Edge parked in the same exact spot where John's body was found, blocking that part of the home, of that yard. Possibly obstructing a view of people bringing John's body out to the lawn. Potentially. I don't know. Just saying.
Isn't it true that Jennifer McCabe pulled you aside while my client and Carrie Roberts stayed with John O'Keefe and began engaging you in conversation?
Yes.
And she was providing some sort of a narrative to you, correct?
Correct.
While the other 2 women are trying to save John O'Keefe's life, she's talking to you.
For brief seconds, I'd say.
For brief seconds?
Yes.
You saw the dash cam video. Was several minutes on the dash cam video where she's standing and having a conversation with you? Are those the brief seconds?
I don't know what time frame you're talking about.
Right after you got there.
Right after I got there.
Correct. Did you ever see Jennifer McCabe do anything physically to help John O'Keefe?
No, I didn't see anything.
Did Jennifer McCabe offer to you during that brief seconds that you described, this narrative that she was having, this conversation she was having, did she ever offer the fact that she was standing in front of her sister's house?
No.
Did she ever offer the fact that her brother-in-law, who lives in the house, is a first responder?
Sustained.
Why?
Were you apprised at any time while you were out there that the homeowner was first responding?
Objection.
Sustained.
Why is that sustained? Why is that objectionable? It's the truth.
Based on your observations, between Karen Reed and Jennifer McKay, which one of those women appeared to be more focused on trying to save John's life in the moment?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Between Karen Reed and Jennifer McKay, which one of those two women, based on your observations, appeared to you to be more focused on physically trying to save John O'Keefe's life in the moment?
At that point, it was Karen Reed.
You would agree with me, Officer Sheriff, that in any investigation, details matter, accuracy matters, correct?
Sure.
Reports are written in police investigation in order to memorialize observations, things heard, seen, experienced by the officers, correct?
Yes.
And generally speaking, you're trained to write those reports and memorialize those observations as quickly as possible so that things are fresh in your memory.
Correct.
You don't want to write a report about an incident that you respond to today, 2 years from now.
No.
As a matter of fact, you're trained exactly the opposite. When you respond to a scene, somewhat important, you need to get it down on paper as quickly as possible for detail and accuracy, right?
Yes.
You did, in fact, write a report, a supplemental report for this investigation, where you laid out your observations of that morning, correct?
That's correct.
These are called incident reports, correct?
Yes.
I'm holding what appears to be a multi-page document that is entitled an incident report. May I approach?
Yes.
Just a little bit more of his testimony, and then we'll move on to the next guy. But Alan Jackson impeaches him pretty good right here, so pay attention. Put on captions. Sorry. I didn't know they were available.
Tell me if you recognize what's on that page.
I'm sorry.
Do you recognize that? All I'm asking is, do you
yes.
recognize that as your report?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
Did you write that?
Yes, sir.
When did you write that?
I believe the morning of.
So that would be January 29th,
That's correct.
a little bit later in the morning after you left the scene.
Yes.
And you were reflecting back on what had just happened minutes or hours before, correct?
Yep.
And you were trying to be as truthful as possible, correct?
Yes.
You were trying to be as accurate as possible,
Yes.
as comprehensive as possible,
Yes.
and as thorough as possible.
Yes.
You wrote in that report, quote, Karen Reed kept screaming, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She was severely distraught and not able to tell me what happened. Correct?
That's correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
There was no limit to the amount of words that you could put on the page, correct?
Nope.
Matter of fact, there's a ton of white space. It's left unutilized, right?
That's correct.
You could have taken as much time as you wanted to in writing this report. Is that right?
Sure.
And it was, is that yes?
Yes.
There was no reason to abbreviate anything. Is that right?
Nope.
And you tried to be as accurate as you possibly could in that moment
Yes.
and put everything down in that report that reflected what you experienced, what you observed, and what you heard that morning, correct?
Yes.
And the only statement you attribute to my client on that morning, just hours after the incident or minutes after the incident, was she kept repeating, "Is he dead?" Correct?
Yes.
You were interviewed by Michael Proctor the next day, weren't you?
I don't know what day it was, but. if you
To
would-
refresh your recollection, take a look at the report.
Sure.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Take a look at that report that's dated March 15, but reflects an interview on January 30, and then tell me if you recognize it.
Looks like his report.
Okay. That's that's Trooper Proctor's report of an interview that he did with you, correct?
Yes.
And if you look on the second page, paragraph about what you stated to Trooper Proctor.
That's highlighted? Is
I
that-
highlighted for you, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Did you tell Trooper Proctor, let me withdraw that, ask it a different way. Were you trying to be as thorough and comprehensive with Trooper Proctor as you were in your own report?
Yes.
You weren't holding anything back in that interview, correct?
No.
You wanted to be as truthful and as honest as you possibly could,
Yep.
and as comprehensive as you possibly could, correct?
Yes.
You told Trooper Proctor that you could, quote, hear Karen Reed continually state, "Is he dead?" as the paramedics treated the victim. Officer Seraph then seated Karen inside her friend's vehicle, correct?
Correct.
So the only statement you attributed to my client the day after this incident was, those 3 words, "Is he dead?" that she continually repeated. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Now watch how it progresses after he talks to Michael Proctor.
In the 2 times that you were asked to reflect back on exactly what happened that morning, on January 29th and January 30th, both times you attributed only 3 words to my client having been repeated continually in her distraught state. Is he dead? Right?
Yes.
And she wasn't saying that calmly, I'm
No.
assuming.
No.
Matter of fact, you used the word she was severely distraught. Is that right?
That's correct.
When you say severely distraught, we saw part of that on your dash cam. She was emotional,
Yes.
upset,
Yes.
focused on John,
Yes.
trying to save his life,
Yes.
and asking, what was the question that she asked?
Is he dead?
Over and over and over, correct?
Correct.
Then you were asked to testify in April of 2022, April 14th of 2022, at a state-run grand jury by the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Matter of fact, Mr. Lally was the fine prosecutor who was asking you the question. Is correct?
Yes.
Between the time you wrote your report on January 29th and you gave a statement officially on January 30th, between that time and when you testified in April of 2022, do you have any meetings with anybody from the Massachusetts State Police?
No.
Did you have any meetings with Mr. Lally?
No.
Did Mr. Lally put you on the stand without talking to you first?
No. For this trial?
Nope. I'm just, the dates in question are up to April 14th, 2022, at grand jury.
I don't recall.
You don't recall if you met with either Mr. Lally or any of his contemporaries to discuss your potential testimony?
Not. I don't recall meeting with him for that. No. One time I met with him in his office was a couple of weeks ago with this.
In preparation for this testimony?
Correct.
But your testimony now is that he didn't meet with you or you did not connect with him to discuss your testimony before the April grand jury?
I don't recall.
When you did testify in that grand jury, you changed your story, didn't you?
No.
You believe you testified completely consistently at that grand jury as you had in your report?
I testified for what I remember what happened, sir.
I see. Was your memory better in April than it was minutes or hours after the event?
Is it better?
Was it better or worse?
I don't know.
Do you think your memory gets better as time goes on?
Not usually, no.
No. Usually it's the opposite, isn't it?
Yes.
Memories get foggy, they fade.
Yes.
Which is why you write reports the day of the incident, if you can, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember what you testified to at the grand jury in April of 2022?
The whole thing?
No,
Oh,
sorry, that's a bad question on my part. Just as it relates to statements attributed to my client.
Yes.
What was your exact testimony in April of 2022?
I'd have to look at that.
Would it refresh your recollection if you saw a copy of your
Sure.
grand jury transcript? May I approach?
Yes.
Look at page 18. Let me know once you remember it, once you review that and tell me if that refreshes your recollection.
Yes, it does.
In fact, on April 14th, 2022, months after this event, for the first time you said, quote, and these are your words, tell me if I get them right. She, this is my fault. I don't know. She said, I can't believe this happened. I mean, she kept asking if he was going to die, if he's dead. And, I just basically said, we're doing the best that we could, end quote.
That's correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
So in April of 2022, for the first time, you attributed the phrase, "This is my fault. I can't believe this happened," to my client, correct?
That's correct.
But nowhere in your official report did you say that.
That's correct.
And nowhere in your interview with Trooper Proctor the next day did you say that.
That's correct.
You think that was a pretty important omission on your part?
It was an oversight.
An oversight.
Yes, sir.
That a woman whom you made contact with, standing over the body of a fallen police officer, said to you, "This is my fault." Just missed that.
Yes, I missed it. Yeah, I didn't write it down.
And then, of course, you testified yesterday, and your statement changed again, right?
I don't.
Remember what you said yesterday, these jurors?
I don't know. Word for word.
Well, I wrote it down. Let's see if this helps. Yesterday you said, my client said, quote, "It's all my fault. I did this," end quote.
Yes.
Remember that? That yes?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't say that at the grand jury, and you didn't say that to Trooper Proctor,
No, sir.
and you didn't put it in your report.
That's correct.
Interesting, huh?
If you were to testify in another 2 or 3 weeks, I think your statement would just keep evolving.
Objection.
Sustained.
Now I want to shift gears for a second and talk about what Ms. Reed actually said that morning. You said that you reviewed your dash cam video, correct?
Once.
Do you remember when you arrived, one of the first things out of your mouth was the question, "What happened?"
Yes.
That would be a natural question to
Sure,
ask.
yeah.
Right? You assess the scene and assess the situation.
Absolutely.
And you would want to listen closely to what that answer was, correct?
Sure.
Ms. Reed did in fact answer you, didn't she?
I don't recall what you said.
She said, quote, "My boyfriend, I left him and he never came home," end quote. Correct?
I don't know. I don't recall.
You agree, we've already agreed, that details matter in any investigation.
Absolutely.
They certainly matter in this investigation, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'd like you to take a look at what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 26.
He's going to play some audio. It's really difficult to hear. I recommend earbuds or headphones or something to hear it better.
This is about the 3:50 runtime. I'm not looking at the actual. I'm not looking at the actual time of day over here. I'm looking at the runtime, which is down at the bottom. So, if Mr. Bates, you can put this up. Can you pause it? Just to orient everybody, does this appear to be your dash cam?
Yes, sir.
Same dash cam you were looking at yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and check Mr. Bates. Pause it. Officer Seraph, just like it's not an eye exam, it's not a hearing exam either. I'm going to do the best I can to raise the volume. And Officer Seraph, I want to focus your attention, if you wouldn't mind, on 9 seconds after you say, "What happened?" Just count in your head and listen very, very carefully to the woman's voice that responds to what she says. Go ahead. Pause it. Very, very hard to hear. Have you listened to that before?
No.
Does it appear to you that she said, "My boyfriend, I left him and he never came home"?
I couldn't understand anything.
Okay. Let's replay it one more time. Turn the volume up one more time right at that moment. Listen for a woman's voice just under. Sorry, I was asking Officer Seraph, please listen to, there's a din of noise, obviously, road noise, wind noise, etc. It's your dash cam, the audio from your dash cam. Once you close the door, listen very carefully about 9 seconds after you say "what happened" or a woman's voice and see if you can make out what that voice says. Sure. Stop. appear, I left him and he never came home?
I couldn't understand what you were saying.
You couldn't understand that?
No.
It's very, very faint, but you can hear something. Never came. I can hear the very end part, like left him but never came home. I can't really hear the my boyfriend. That's my boyfriend part. But it does. I can hear the very tail end of it. I can't hear when she starts saying my boyfriend, but you can hear it. It's faint. It's very faint. It's hard to hear, but you can hear it. I heard it. Which just proves the point that Karen's been telling the truth from the beginning and that she's been railroaded by these cops and framed from the beginning.
You want to hear it one more time?
No.
I don't think it,
No. Turn the lights on, please.
Judge Bev says no more times. Wow. She's so rude.
Now, if my client had said, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home, would that be something that you would find important to put in your report?
Objection.
Sustained.
Let's move to another area of the dash cam video. I want to keep playing it at the 28-minute mark, 28-minute and 20-second mark or so.
So can I see counsel sidebar for just a minute, please?
She doesn't want the truth coming out, pretty much. It's John's parents, Paul and Aaron. We heard from them on day one on the stand. The sound will come back.
Do you recognize your dash cam video being on the left of the screen?
yes, sir.
This is
You look at
crazy.
Sort of Good's dash cam video, which is squared up on the right side of the screen.
No.
You've never seen it?
No.
Okay. Does it appear to you that these are two different perspectives of the same scene? In other words, you see the car or the SUV on the left side of the screen right here, correct?
Yes, sir.
You see that same SUV right there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that appear to be two different perspectives, two different angles?
Yes.
Of basically the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to the individuals to the left of the SUV right here.
We're going to see some people running around, and it's hard to see, especially if you can't like zoom in. But if you watch it on a phone or like a tablet or something and zoom in, you can really see what's going on. That's what I did, but I don't know if you can see it as well here. We'll see. We'll take a
There's
look.
a person wearing a hood with fur on it. Is that Carrie Roberts? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Okay. There appears to be another person with a darker jacket standing just in front of that person with the hood and fur. You see that person?
Yes.
Okay.
I said in the first episode or day one, we need a bevometer or breathometer. We need something to like keep tally every time she sighs really unprofessionally into the mic. She's so rude to the defense.
I'm going to ask you to focus on the person in the darker jacket.
Sure.
I believe, and the only reason I'm asking you to focus at this point is because I want to try to play this just once and see if you recognize what's depicted in the video.
Sure.
What I expect you may see is this person move out of sight behind the SUV, and then in the background, there's an SUV parked in the driveway. Pay special attention to that portion of the SUV and see if you see that person in a dark jacket pass from right to left in front of that SUV as if they're going to the house.
That's where the house is.
Go ahead and play it. Go ahead and pause it. Have you seen the person in the dark jacket leave the view?
Yes.
Did she appear to go behind the SUV?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and play it. Go ahead and stop there. And now I'm going to ask you to draw your attention to that car with snow on it.
Just
Pay
stare
special
right
attention
there.
to that car as the film continues to run. Go ahead. Pause. See a person standing in front of the car,
Yep.
Appears to be a person. Yes.
walking from right to left.
Yes.
Would that be toward the house?
Yes, it would.
Okay. And also, if you wouldn't mind switching your perspective, now you're looking more at the front of the house. Continue watching the film and see if you see that same person walking into the house. Okay, stop. Did you see that?
Yep.
No, I didn't see. Oh, yeah, yes, I saw the shadow, yes.
Right. Shadow
Yes.
walking toward the front of the house. That was Jeff McCabe going into the house, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Yep.
Was it a person going into the house?
It was a person, yes.
Did you give anybody any permission to go into the house?
No, not my.
Would you think that a witness in a homicide scene, we can go ahead and raise the lights, thank you. Would you think that a witness at a homicide scene being allowed to go into a house to make contact with other witnesses?
I didn't know it was a homicide scene, sir.
If I could finish my question. Do you think it's appropriate for a witness at a potential homicide scene, an unconscious person scene, whatever crime scene,
Yes.
to make contact with other witnesses and begin discussing the situation unsupervised?
Yes.
Can you rephrase that question, sir?
Do you think that's an appropriate thing to have happen?
I have no answer for that, sir. I don't know what you'd be asking.
Officer Sheriff, when you go to a crime scene,
Yes, sir.
one of the first things that you want to do is secure the scene and separate witnesses so that interviews could be conducted, correct?
Sure.
You wouldn't want witnesses just cavorting together and getting their story straight, right?
Correct.
You'd want to avoid that at all costs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And why is that?
So they can't collaborate their story.
Yet there was a person walking from the area where a body was found in the lawn of a house, walking into the house to make contact with other individuals, correct?
It appeared that way, yes, sir.
Does that seem appropriate to you?
No.
Of course not.
I mean, this guy gets totally schooled by Alan Jackson. Totally schooled. All right, let's move on to Stephen. Is it? No. Officer Mullaney. I can't remember his first name. Maybe it is Stephen too. I don't know. So this is Officer Mullaney, and he was one of the first. I think he may have been the second person on the scene.
Different sort of geographic sectors within the town to which you're assigned?
Yep, I was assigned to the east sector.
And it's Fairview Road within that east sector?
It's the west sector.
So you were assigned to the east sector, but dispatched were calling the west sector, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know why that was?
Yes, east. The east sector backs up the west sector.
So many sirens.
This on 28th, going into the 29th. Were you
Why
aware?
don't you hold on a minute for that? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Lally.
No, thank you. So on the 28th, going into the 29th, what, if any, awareness did you have as far as the weather forecast or sort of what was
Oh.
I believe around midnight it began to snow.
and that's while you're on shift, is that correct?
Yes.
When you're on shift and you're on patrol, particularly when there's a weather situation as far as snow or something like that, what is it that you're doing on patrol?
Well, I stayed in the parking lot that shift, so didn't get stuck anywhere.
And as far as the snow that was predicted and the snow that fell, how much precipitation, what kind of a storm was it?
Well, by the morning it was pretty heavy snow.
And by the morning, by what time?
About around 6 a.m.
So by the time that you were dispatched to that call, we were just talking about the snow was picking up and getting heavy.
Yes.
So the snow started picking up at 6. But that doesn't mean that it was snowing all night and he was under inches and inches of snow, because that's what the Commonwealth will have us believe. I'm going to fast forward through some of the snow talk, because he gets that through with like every single witness. He tries to talk about snow. All right, here I think he's talking about when he gets to the scene.
What is it that you...
Officer Sarif, at that point we were trying to identify the victim, so I spoke to Ms. McCabe.
And without sort of anything that Mr. McCabe told you, about how long a period of time did you talk to Mr. McCabe gathering information?
Approximately 2 minutes.
And who, if anyone else, did
That's who we see in the dash cam, in Officer Saraf's dash cam, with Jen McCabe talking and just, you know, shooting the breeze. She's just trying, I believe she was trying to take control of the narrative very, very early on.
speak with, attempting to gather information regarding this case?
Miss McKay's the only one I recall speaking to.
Now, as far as the defendant, Ms. Reed, what if anything, do you recall her sort of doing as you're on scene and as you're going about what you're trying to do?
She was screaming, "Is that my boyfriend? Is he dead?"
When you say screaming,
So all of the law enforcement that actually get there first on the scene say that she's just screaming, "That's my boyfriend, is he dead?" Not the "I killed him" or "I hit him" or "I did this, it's my fault." Nobody says that until after they meet with law enforcement or the prosecution or whoever they meet with. They end up changing their stories. So it's a little sus.
in a fairly loud voice, correct?
Very, very loud, yes.
And as far as that sort of phraseology, as far as is he dead, how many times was that something she said? Once, more than once, or something?
Repeated many times.
And with the same sort of volume that she had said it with as you described the first time?
Yes.
This only helps the defense. I don't know what he's getting at.
And as far as, if you know, about how long was the ambulance on scene before it left to go to the hospital?
10 minutes approximately.
Do you know what hospital it went to?
Good Samaritan.
And after the ambulance
So boring.
went to the hospital, where did the three women that you're talking about, being defendant, Mr. K, and Ms. Roberts, where did they go?
I believe they left the scene.
What
So
is
did you
this?
have any conversations did you?
What? You were under the
How was
blanket.
depicted in that photograph is that a relatively clear and accurate portrayal of what you observed of the residence on the morning of January 29th, 2020.
Yes.
And if I could have exhibit number 18. And again, Officer Mulaney, what's up on the screen? Do you recognize what's depicted in exhibit 18?
Yes.
What do you recognize that?
That's 34th year view.
Sort of a different view, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the residence, if I'm standing on the street and I'm facing the residence as in the previous photograph, the area of the lawn where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe laying on his back with his face up, would that be to the left of the residence, the right of the residence, or dead center?
Like right.
And what, if anything, did you observe sort of in that general area as far as landmarks or things that were
My
in that,
dog. It's annoying me.
Fire hydrant and a flagpole.
and may I approach the witness room?
Yes.
There's a flagpole and the fire hydrant. I don't believe you can see it. It might be out of range.
Okay.
So, officer, if I could ask you,
Let's skip forward. Let's get
And
to
one of
some
the first
cross.
things that you saw was there appeared to be a woman giving CPR to somebody on the ground.
Yeah, yes.
You didn't know who that woman was at the time, correct?
No, sir.
But you later learned her identity.
Yes, I don't recall which female it was that was giving CPR, though.
Okay. So you don't recall that it was Karen Reed who was giving CPR to John O'Keefe?
I don't know who it was.
At some point in time, you came in contact with Karen Reed, correct, while you were on scene?
Not direct contact, but I was on scene when she was there.
I mean, you were there until about 8 a.m.,
Yeah,
correct?
yes.
And you were dispatched shortly after 6 a.m.,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, sir.
You were there for approximately 2 hours, correct?
Yes,
You were there when Karen Reed was there when you showed up, correct?
yes,
She left and she came back to the scene, correct?
yes,
And you were there when she came back, correct?
yes, sir.
So, with regard to your contact with her, she certainly was within eyeshot, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you actually, at some points, were closer to her than you are to me right now, correct?
Yeah.
How close did you get to her?
10 feet.
All right. With the court's permission, I'd like to walk toward you and have you stop me when I'm at the point when you were at your closest to Karen Reed. Can I do that, Your Honor?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Right there.
Okay. And when you were this close to her, and you're estimating this to be about 10 feet, correct? When you were this close to her, was there anything blocking your view of her face?
Not that I recall.
You noticed, obviously, that she had blood on her face, correct?
I did not notice that.
You didn't notice that she had blood in her hair.
I did not notice that.
You did notice that she was absolutely hysterical.
Yes.
She was completely distraught.
Yes.
She appeared to be in shock.
Yes.
And there was a contrast between that demeanor that you observed with regard to Karen Reed and the demeanor of one of the other women on scene, Jennifer McCabe. Was there not?
Bev.
Can you kind of explain further?
Sure. Karen Reed was screaming, correct?
Yes.
She was yelling, correct?
Yes.
She was hysterical and distraught, correct?
Yes.
Jennifer McCabe was not.
Correct.
And you actually had more contact, direct contact with Jennifer McCabe that morning, correct?
Yes.
And you spoke to Jennifer McCabe for a good 2 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Face to face.
Yes, sir.
You were closer to Jennifer McCabe than you ever got to Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
You were able to observe her demeanor.
Yes.
You were able to hear her tone of voice.
Yes.
You were able to hear how loudly she was speaking, correct?
Yes.
You were able to hear how quickly she was speaking.
Yes.
During those 2 minutes that you were face to face closer to Jennifer McCabe, she was not screaming, correct?
Correct.
She was not yelling.
Correct.
She was not hysterical.
Correct.
She was not distraught.
Yes.
She was calm.
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it, but let's move on.
Jennifer McCabe didn't have any blood on her face, correct? No. And you didn't see any blood in Jennifer McCabe's hair, correct?
No.
Now, with regard to what you heard Karen Reed scream that morning, I just want to make sure I get your testimony correct. I believe on direct examination, you stated that she kept repeating two phrases, one being, "Is he dead?" and the second being, "That's my boyfriend," correct?
Yes.
And how many times do you think that she repeated those two phrases?
It's quite a bit. More than 10.
Like almost too many times to count, really.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And each time she said, "Is he dead?" what was her tone of voice?
She, screaming very loudly.
Each time she said, "Is that my boyfriend?" what was her tone of voice?
Same.
And you got there not long after Officer Saraf, correct?
Correct.
In any of during the time, let me strike that, during the time that you were on scene and you heard Karen Reed screaming and yelling in this distraught and hysterical manner, you never once heard her say, "I did it," correct?
I did not.
You never once heard her say, "It's my fault," correct?
I did not.
You never once heard her say, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," correct?
I did not.
If you had heard any of those statements, you would have recognized that those would have been important to note, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you would have noted those in your police report, obviously, correct?
Yes.
Because you know that when you are drafting a police report, you want to include all the important details, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you want to be precise and accurate, correct?
Yes.
And so you didn't put those statements in your report because you never heard those statements come out of Karen Reed's mouth.
Yes, sir.
Now, while you were on scene, at some point in time, you were asked to participate in a search for evidence on that front lawn, were you not?
I was standing by. I didn't directly search for anything that I recall.
All right, and when you say you were standing by the area where John O'Keefe's body had been, correct?
This is Canton PD, by the way. Canton PD were the first ones to arrive on scene. They were first ones to attend to John and the witnesses, and also do the first search of the property. And they found pieces of broken cocktail glass and what was it? They found drops of blood, droplets throughout the snow, which they collected in red Solo cups that they got, I think, from a neighbor. They also used a leaf blower to melt the snow to search the area. I'm pretty sure none of that is typical protocol for police procedure in a crime scene, but they just improvised. Because, again, it's cops versus cops here. Cops Canton police arrive. The person who owns the home is Boston police. He has a brother who is in the Canton police, who that's why they got recused for, that's why there was a conflict of interest, and that's why they conflicted out, because the homeowner, Brian, has a brother named Kevin, who is a Canton police officer as well.
And how close were you to that area?
I was like right off the curb at that point on the street.
How many feet from from where the body had been?
10 to 12 feet. 15
So
feet.
maybe about the same distance as when I walked toward you, around that distance?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And how much time did you spend around that distance from where John O'Keefe's body was?
I don't recall.
You were there for 2 hours, correct?
Yes.
2 hours.
So is it fair to say that you were sort of in and around that area multiple times during that 2 hours?
Yes.
Did you ever see anybody put up any crime scene tape at all?
I don't recall that.
Nope.
You recall other officers sort of searching.
The scene was not secured, is basically he's getting at. Nothing was done properly. The scene wasn't secured like it should have been to keep people out.
That
Nothing.
area, correct?
Yes.
And while you were near that area, you were certainly paying attention to it, correct?
Yes.
Did you see officers use any equipment to clear some of the snow in that area?
Yes, sir.
What did you see?
There was a leaf blower.
Where did that leaf blower come from?
I don't know.
Who had the leaf blower?
I believe it was Lieutenant Gallagher.
When did Lieutenant Gallagher arrive on scene?
45 minutes after I did, approximately. I don't recall the exact time.
And how big was that leaf blower?
Not too big. It was
Was it handheld or was it something that you pushed?
handheld.
And who used the leaf blower?
Lieutenant Gallagher.
At what area or on what area did he use that leaf blower?
The front lawn.
And would that have been around the area where John O'Keefe's body had been?
Yes.
And you were watching him as he did that, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
What other officers were in that area sort of watching what was going on or participating in the search for what was going on?
Don't necessarily recall where everybody was, but I believe it would be Sergeant Link and Sergeant Good.
And they were superior officers, correct?
Correct.
And you understood that these brother officers of yours were looking for evidence, right?
Yes.
They were looking for clues about potentially what had happened to John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And you were paying attention too as they were doing their work, correct?
Yes.
You were looking for anything that might have been out of place, correct?
Yes.
If there was something large there that didn't appear to, be appropriate for a front lawn, you would have made note of that, correct?
Yes.
And if there was something small there, you would have still made note of that if it didn't appear to belong on a front lawn, correct?
Yes.
At any point in time, either before or after the leaf blower was taken out by Lieutenant Gallagher, did you see 45 pieces of bright red, black, and clear plastic pieces scattered all over the scene?
I did not.
Did you find even or see even one piece of broken plastic?
I did not.
I mean, wow.
When you came to the scene, John O'Keefe was still lying on the ground, correct?
Yes.
Did you see whether or not there were any blankets on scene?
No.
Remember in the 911 call, we heard them asking for blankets, and someone said, Carrie, I don't see blankets in here. And someone's like, blankets, blankets, he's freezing. She says, Karen screaming hysterically. It breaks my heart to listen to it. And there were no blankets on him, even though it was the home of her, John McCabe's sister's husband. Sister and husband. And they didn't get blankets. They couldn't get blankets. I don't know.
Did you know that one of the women on scene had a sister who lived in that very house?
I did not.
When you were speaking with
How did they get that in and not the law enforcement part in? I don't know how they were. Why aren't they allowed to bring up the fact that Brian Albert is a cop or, you know, a first responder to respond to a scene like that?
McCabe, at any point, did you learn whether she had actually gone into that house at all?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you see Jennifer McCabe approach that house at any point when you were on scene?
No.
Were you alerted at any point by anyone that she went into that house while you were on scene?
No.
Did you ever see Jennifer McCabe come out of that house with blankets or anything else that might comfort John O'Keefe?
No.
So she went in the house. We know because we saw the video. She went in the house, but she didn't come back with anything that was helpful. So why did she go in the house? And if you go back and listen to the 911 call, there's a point where she stops talking, and so you can tell like she's most likely not on the phone anymore. But then she calls while that recording is still happening. She calls her sister, and she calls Brian a little later. It's not in that call, but it's very much you can hear her saying like, "Are you going to come out and effing help?" or something like that. Like she's mad at her sister because they're not coming out. Like she was trying to get them to come out, it seems, Jen McCabe, and they just refused. I wonder, see, because you know there was like a plan going on and everybody was like, okay, so this is what we're going to say and this is what we're going to do. I wonder if the plan was originally for Brian Albert and Nicole Albert to come out, and then they changed, like after everybody left, Brian was like, well, we're not going out there. Just don't answer the phone. Don't open the door. We're not doing anything. I wonder. I kind of have a feeling that that's what happened. Like maybe they were supposed to have come out that night, and that was the original plan, and Brian said, I'm not putting myself in that area at all. That's what I think happened.
State of mind regarding
And I'm
whether there
speculating.
were any first responders in that house?
I wasn't aware of that.
Nobody told you.
No.
He got that in.
You had testified that
All right. We'll move on from Officer Mullaney. They had a lunch here, and then we come back, and we've got some fire department personnel to talk or to listen to their testimony. This guy, I can't remember his name. I think it's like Nettle something.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, yes. So
Let's go find his name because I feel
do the
bad.
job.
Okay.
You can stand or sit, whatever makes you.
Well, please state your name and spell your last name.
Here we go.
Timothy Nuttall. Last name is Nuttall, Nuttall.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a firefighter paramedic with the town of Canton.
And how long have you been a firefighter paramedic in town?
I believe 5 years and coming up on 6.
And prior to working in that capacity with the town of Canton, what, if any, other employment have you had within sort of the same field as far as being a paramedic?
To back up significantly, I got my EMT certification when I was still in high school through CMTI.
I'm going to skip forward through all this
So I'm
background
currently
stuff.
on my group. I am our field training officer for my group, Group 2.
He's very proud of all he does. He's very active.
What, if anything, do you note as far as sort of driving conditions, visibility, anything like that?
The snow was starting to accumulate. The roads, I drove through several towns. The roads were starting to be treated, but they weren't pristine. There was obviously a buildup of snow starting on my ride, which was part of the reason I left early, just either to relieve people if they needed to get out before the storm really hit, or just to help them with snow removal.
And to that point, when it comes to sort of snow removal at the fire station, what, if any, sort of duties and responsibilities do yourself and the other firefighters have in relation to snow removal around the station?
So we're responsible around the station to keep what we refer to as the apron clear of snow. The apron is where we back our fire trucks into and out of the station. So we remove all that ourselves. We have a plow truck. However, we'll also shovel walkways and stuff for the public if they need to get in. So that was one of the primary. The crew was actually outside removing snow when I pulled in to the station that morning.
It may be pretty self-explanatory, but as far as the apron itself, why is it so necessary that the apron remain clear as far as snow is concerned?
just to maintain a path for
Okay, this is so boring.
put the rest of my gear in the back. And as we were driving to the scene of the incident, I started prepping the gear that we were going to need off the initial dispatch and unresponsive mail in the snow. So I grabbed our first in bag, which has miscellaneous medical supplies, some IV supplies, an interosseous drill kit, the airway bag, which has just a bottle of oxygen, and then quite a bit of airway management supplies, and our cardiac monitor. So I had all of those prepped out and ready to go. So as soon as the ambulance was in park, we could step right out, ascertain what we had, and go from there. So when the ambulance arrived on scene, I had all 3 of those bags on my person, and we were able to, the entire ambulance crew was able to step out and provide patient care.
Okay. Well, he brought a ton of supplies.
And began ventilating the patient, trying to get some
Okay,
oxygen
here
into
we
him,
go.
while the others on scene, like I said, began high-quality CPR.
And again, maybe pretty well understood. When you use the term supine, what exactly do you mean?
He was laying on his back.
Laying on his back, his head sort of facing up, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you are responding to a call of this nature, there's you and there's other individuals on the ambulance as well, correct?
Correct.
And is there a certain division as far as treatment and diagnosis and things of that nature are concerned between you and the other people on the ambulance?
So typically, just to use the scenario of a cardiac arrest with 2 paramedics, it's generally split into the airway individual, or the airway monitor, and the, lack of a better term, code monitor. The airway individual will be responsible for ventilation and eventually advanced airway placement. The other part of that equation will monitor cardiac status, cardiac activity.
I feel like it keeps lagging. I'm gonna take the quality down just a smidge just to see if that helps. Oh, but now it looks terrible.
will deliver medications and a route for those medications, and they will work together to monitor that patient throughout. As I said, I was on the head. I just happened to fall at the head, so I took the ventilation portion of that.
And you use the term as far as bag valve mapping,
Yep.
is that correct?
Right.
Can you explain to the jury sort of what that is?
All that is it's, for lack of a better term, it's basically a glorified balloon with a mask on it. When you squeeze that bag, that forces air into the airway, so you can ventilate an individual who is no longer breathing on their own.
And as far as obviously with your work with the fire department, there are sort of records or reports that are written in regard.
Hear screaming, I could hear people yelling, and it seems just to be that group was just quite agitated.
Now, at some points you are able to get them on this stretcher and then over to the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
And when you get to the ambulance, what, if anything, did you note as far as what kind of difference was there in the lighting in the back of the ambulance versus on the front lawn?
Lighting was significantly better. All of our ambulances have fluorescent lighting in the ceiling of the ambulance, so those were on, and we were able to see that there was some more injuries once we were able to get him out of his winter clothing.
And so, to that point, when you sort of first get into the back,
I think I skipped over it, but he testified to John having a big puffy coat on. Like a big puffy winter coat, and he was like sure of it, like positive of it. I think we'll get to it on cross. And John didn't have a big puffy coat on.
ambulance, what is sort of protocol? What is sort of what is it that each of you are sort of doing with respect to patient care?
So the biggest priority is continuous high-quality CPR, and that is the biggest thing with any cardiac arrest is uninterruption of compressions. So when we got him into the back of the ambulance, we continued CPR throughout. So while multiple people were performing CPR and eventually a mechanical CPR device was applied, those compressions were uninterrupted, and others were removing clothing, I honestly couldn't tell you the number of articles of clothing, but I believe a winter jacket and sweatshirt were removed, and then eventually he was, all the clothing was removed, and that's protocol for any cardiac arrest or any traumatic injury is usually all clothing is removed so we can have unfettered access to the individual to see if there are any other injuries.
And why is that protocol?
There is, you mentioned earlier, sir, that there is tunnel vision. The absence of clothing kind of helps to remove that, so you can see everything. You can assess everything.
mentioned sort of a mechanical means of CPR. Is there a specific device that's used for that?
Yes, we use a Lucas device manufactured by Stryker, and for lack of a better term, it's basically just a plunger that does CPR. It frees up a set of hands for us, and that can provide CPR uninterrupted as long as the batteries last.
That's cool.
Now, at the time that you get him get Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance and you remove him from some of the clothing, what, if anything, did you note at that time or at any subsequent time in regard to footwear?
To be candid, I wasn't really looking at the footwear. I believe it was brought to my attention when we eventually transferred patient care at Good Samaritan Medical Center that the individual was missing a shoe. However, that wasn't my primary focus at the time.
And the items of clothing that were removed from within the ambulance, eventually when you transfer that patient care to the hospital, what, if anything, happens with that?
In terms of the chain of custody of the clothing, that is typically brought in either with the individual or after, and that is usually deposited on the floor of the room where that patient is, and then the hospital takes custody of it. Occasionally we'll put it in bags. However, I could not speak to where that clothing went on this case.
Why do they put it on the floor? Shouldn't it be in a bag so that if there is a crime, you can preserve the evidence? I don't understand. So they take off all of his clothes and then they just throw it on the floor in the hospital. That's their procedure? That's their process? Not even in a bag. That's how it ended up on the floor in the hospital.
But fair to say whatever clothing was taken off in the ambulance left the ambulance at some point.
Correct.
And went to the hospital, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you have Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance and the lighting is better, what, if anything, did you observe following sort of the removal of the clothing as far as what, if any, injuries did you observe from Mr. O'Keefe in that sense?
He was noted to have, and I was right at the head, he was noted to have a hematoma on the right side of his face, just above his eye on his forehead. And there was scratches on the right arm, the upper arm.
And,
Scratches.
Term as far as hematoma, could you explain what you understand that term to me?
Lack of a better term is just an egg. He had a pretty good egg on his head.
Swelling.
And as far as anything beyond that, did you observe anything or note anything beyond the egg on the head and scratches on the right arm?
As we got further down our treatment modality, we went to place an advanced airway. It was noted to have some blood, some mucus, and some bile in the back of his airway that was then suctioned out before we placed our endotracheal tube.
And what is an endotracheal?
So an endotracheal tube is basically, it's just a plastic tube that is passed through the mouth into the trachea through the vocal cords. It's a definitive airway, if you will. It isolates the trachea so you can better ventilate your patient, and you don't have to worry about any air getting into the stomach, any gastric insufflation, and that is the gold standard for cardiac arrest, is a properly placed endotracheal tube.
You mentioned there were some substances that were suctioned from his airway, is that correct? What were they again, I'm sorry?
I believe it was blood, bile, and mucus.
And do you have any idea how much of that was suctioned?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but it was enough that we needed to set up a suction system to remove it before we intubated.
Just turning briefly again to the arm. These were injuries that you observed on his right arm, is that correct?
Correct.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on his left?
I don't believe I saw any, to my knowledge.
And as far as your memory, as far as his right arm, how far did it sort of extend and where was it located? Sort of upper arm, lower arm, both, or where was it?
I believe it was just below his shoulder. They ran, I would say, probably 3 or 4 inches from, I would say, about the shoulder right down to maybe 2 inches above the elbow.
He's wrong. He's absolutely wrong. It's the forearm. And we've seen the photos. We know it's the forearm. It's not the upper arm. He's wrong. Absolutely wrong.
As far as Mr. O'Keefe knows, what, if any, observations did you make of that?
Initially, it was noted to be very cold. The individual was cold all around to the touch, but his nose was also quite cold, quite white, just because he had been in the elements for a little while. There appeared to be a little bit of blood on his nose as well. Yeah.
And through your training experience, are you familiar with a term or device known as an OPA?
Correct. Yes.
We're going to skip forward.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark 2 photographs as next in order.
I'm going to get some cross-exam now.
160.
It doesn't
It sounds like Andrew Jackson is doing the cross.
matter so much the number, but why don't you just show the prosecutor the photos?
161 and 1.
I said Andrew Jackson. I do that often. I call him the president. No, Alan Jackson is the attorney, and that's who we're hearing right now, and they're disputing about discovery items.
To what the victim was wearing, your memory might be a little faulty where that's concerned.
Sure.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. You were focused on something completely different.
Correct.
You did notice certain injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's person, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated on direct examination that once you got him into the back of the ambulance, you, as you put it, you had a quote-unquote much better picture of what you were dealing with. Is that right?
Correct.
You testified at the grand jury that you noted that once he was in the back of the ambulance, under better lighting, you were able to tell that he had trauma to the right side of his head.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Are you talking about the major trauma that he suffered to the back of his head, or the egg that you earlier described?
I was more just because it was directly in front of me. It was on the front side of his head.
Okay, so it wasn't the right side of his head. If you said right side of your head, you might point above your ear, right?
Correct,
That's not
yes.
where you're talking about.
I was, and to use my person, I would say right here. So more towards the right, above his right eye.
Right of center, but still on the front of his head.
Correct.
And you did not make any note of another injury on the back of his head.
No.
You talked about the injuries to the right side of his arm, correct? Correct. You noted that those injuries appeared to be scratches.
Yes.
That's your word, not mine, right?
Correct.
You didn't say that those were blunt force trauma.
No.
You didn't say that they were abrasions.
Scratches and abrasions, in my point of view, seem to go hand in hand.
But the word that you used was scratches.
Yes, they were
Like,
furrows down.
say that again?
Furrows, if you will, for lack of a better term. Just
I don't understand that word.
so if you remove something,
Yes.
like you create a furrow in the skin, is that?
Furrows.
Yes, there you go. Sorry, excuse my accent.
No. I'm on your turf.
Fair enough.
It's my accent.
Furrows is what he's saying. Furrow.
I'm sorry. Oh, boy, that one. It's going to be a meme somewhere.
Hey, my cousin Vinny.
Yeah, got it. All right, so when you said furrows, you made your hand in almost like a claw and drug it against your right biceps.
Objection.
Sustained.
He said claw. You went like a claw. That's what he did, though.
Repeat the movement that you did for the jurors when you said furrows.
Objection.
Sustained. Just move on to the next question, please.
Why?
You
What a
agree that
bitch.
A very common cause of a hematoma over one's eye is being hit or punched.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
You said that Mr. O'Keefe did have such a hematoma over his right eye, correct?
Yes.
Did you also see a laceration under the eyebrow but above the lid on his right eye?
I don't recall.
Did you see a laceration on Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
I don't recall.
You did note that there was some blood on his nose, correct?
Correct.
That possibly that came from a small laceration.
Yes.
In your experience, well, let me ask another question. Did it look like he had, in addition to the egg on the right side of his head, in the front, did it also have a black eye on the left side?
If memory serves correct, yes.
So both eyes were blackened.
Primarily the right side, if memory serves.
Okay. And the laceration toward the right side
Yes.
of the right eye. Are those injuries that you just described consistent or inconsistent with some sort of physical altercation?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Did it appear to you, just from your initial assessment, given your experience, training, and background, that those injuries looked like he had been in a fight?
Objection.
I'll see counsel at sidebar, please.
Objection about the fight. He can't say that it looked like he was in a fight? I mean, come on, Judge. You're taking away, like, their ability to put forth their defense. Sidebar. Here we go. I feel so bad for Karen. I feel like she is having to relive this trauma all over again, and I feel that, like, I feel that pain for her.
Obviously a training firefighter. Someone, tell me the word again that you used.
Field training officer or preceptor.
Thank you. As a field training officer, have you seen in your experience the product of the injuries that can be produced from fist fights?
Yes.
Okay. Injuries to the face?
Yes.
Injuries to the mouth? Injuries to the nose?
Yes.
The ears?
Yep.
To the eyes? Defensive wounds on the hands?
Yes.
Did you note we've already talked about, I don't want to go over all this again. You've already noted what the injuries to the face were that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered.
Yes.
Were those consistent or inconsistent with a physical altercation?
I couldn't say.
Were they consistent or inconsistent with being in a fight?
I couldn't say.
Was that egg over his right eye consistent or inconsistent with him having been punched or hit?
I couldn't say.
I thought you said that one of the common causes of an egg like that, a hematoma, as you put it, over someone's eye, is being hit or punched.
There's quite a few reasons that somebody could get an egg, such as that over their head there. I mean, you could get hit with a golf ball,
Of course.
for instance.
I'm not asking you to the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, is it consistent?
It's consistent. It could be.
Okay.
Yeah, is it possible? That's all he's asking. People don't want to answer questions.
And the other injuries as well?
Correct.
Okay. Did you see bruising to the back of one or both of his hands?
His hands were, as stated, they were very cold and very white. They were not well perfused. And when you don't have adequate perfusion, swelling and smaller injuries don't typically present themselves, if you will.
So you may not have seen it?
Correct.
The bruising may have been there.
It might have been there. It just wasn't observable just due to the condition of his hands.
Just may have overlooked.
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that you were not present when your colleague, Katie McLaughlin, was questioning anybody at the scene, correct?
Correct.
She's tasked with that responsibility, but you did not engage with her.
Correct.
Meaning, when I say engage with her, you weren't standing there with her.
No, I was in the back of the ambulance.
Okay. You claim to have heard the statement, I hit him,
Yes.
several times from the woman with blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic,
Correct.
hysterical.
Correct.
You said, for lack of a better term, running around in circles.
Yes.
She seemed despondent or distraught,
Very distraught.
very upset.
Yes.
Was she saying anything else that you recall?
To me, I heard I hit him, and then I went back, obviously continuing on patient care, focusing on patient care.
Did you hear her say, could I have hit him?
I heard I hit him.
That's what you
He's the first person to be saying that she said, I hit him, I hit him. All the other officers that we've heard from so far, two, have said she was screaming, that's my boyfriend, is he dead? Those are two very different points of, or, very different statements. Is he dead or I hit him?
Do you believe at this point?
That's what I heard.
Okay. Where exactly were you?
I was crouched at the head of Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay. You were asked that exact question at the grand jury, correct? To describe where you were and who was doing what.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. You were asked a question when you spoke to her and she said, I hit him. Were you with the other representatives, sir, there at the time? Were there other people around you? You remember being asked that question by a grand juror?
I don't recall.
Do you remember answering, no, there were other people around me. I had paramedics Flamati with me. I believe firefighter Kelly was there as well.
Correct. So the three of us were all providing patient care around Mr. O'Keefe.
And you indicated that we were all there together. You were kneeling and you were doing the airway while you called it Tony.
Yes, that's Anthony Tony. Yes.
All right. He was doing the CPR, correct?
Correct.
And it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flamati was doing CPR. Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him? Directly to the female, and she answered your question with, I hit him, I hit him.
Yes.
That doesn't even make sense.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview.
Okay. I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Let's start at the beginning. Do you remember having a conversation with Trooper Proctor on February 8th?
I do.
That was obviously much closer in time than your grand jury testimony, correct?
Correct.
And years closer in time than your testimony now.
Correct.
Do you recall on February 8th telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, "I hit him," to another female on the scene?
To another female. As I stated, I heard several times I hit him. In terms of who that was directed towards, I mean, again, focused on patient care.
Understood. My question was a little bit different. Do you recall telling Trooper Proctor specifically that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, "I hit him," to another female on the scene, and the other female told Karen to be quiet?
I do recall that.
Okay. That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that story has changed to you posed a question, and she answered your question. Correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So, when ventilating a patient, typically, that is also used to gather information from bystanders, because as I'm ventilating, I can real quick look around. Do you know this individual? Do you know anything about this individual? That's fairly typical for any scenario in this. It's a very quick information gathering strategy.
But you'll agree that your testimony today has changed from what it was in your statement to Trooper Proctor on February 8th.
I don't know if it would so much say change, sir. To be honest, I don't fully recall that meeting with Mr. Proctor.
So you don't, I'm sorry.
I remember meeting with him. However, I don't fully remember what was discussed.
So it's fair to say that your memory is a little bit faulty as it pertains to that time frame.
Absolutely.
Okay. When you went to the hospital with the patient, did you ever inform any of the doctors or nurses or medical professionals at the hospital that you had heard a female claim to have hit John O'Keefe, and that's the reason for his injuries?
I did not give the report to the hospital.
So the answer to that is no,
No.
you did not. As a first responder and a medical professional yourself, obviously you know that the cause and manner of the victim's injuries are incredibly important as it pertains to assessing how to treat that patient.
Correct.
Once you got back to the station and to take a breath, did you write any report?
I did not. No, I did not write the patient care report.
So you didn't write a report, just to finish my question, you didn't write a report that said, by the way, while I was out at the scene, I heard a female say, "I hit him," and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you wrote a report that said that.
Correct.
And you did not.
I did not write the patient care report.
Okay. At any time that day or any day subsequent thereto, did you contact the Canton Police Department, to the first responders?
I did not.
So let me finish my question. And say, by the way, just so you know, I heard this woman say, "I hit him."
I did not.
Did you ever, on that day or any day subsequent thereto, contact the Massachusetts State Police and say, "I heard this person say I hit him"?
I did not.
So the first time you ever repeated that statement was on February 8th with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
And by the time we've come full circle to today, that statement has now pivoted.
In terms,
You didn't you didn't overhear the person say it to a female. Now, she's talking directly to you now.
she spoke directly to me, yes.
Have you, just one last point, you've obviously noted that this case has gotten an enormous amount of notoriety, correct?
Correct.
How many times would you say that you've discussed this case and this incident with your fellow firefighters?
It's brought up around the station semi-frequently. However, being involved in it, we try to stay clear of it just because we are involved in it.
So the answer is, there have been many discussions.
Yes.
Probably daily.
Frequently.
Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory around that time frame?
Objection. He can have that. Have they?
Repeat the question for me, sir?
Sure. Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory?
The memories that I have and the ones that I'm bringing up, I don't believe that they've changed. You know, I've played them over in my head to the best of my ability, and I don't believe my story is swayed. If they've been enunciated incorrectly on my part, it wasn't intentional.
Understood. And,
Yeah.
and nobody's casting aspersions. Okay. Memory's a funny thing. So your memory is as good about that as it is about that winter coat.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
The winter coat that John didn't have. All right, so that was Nettle, something, Timothy Nettle. And now here is the next fire department EMT guy.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and the jury in the case now and hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Name is Anthony Flamati. Last name spelled Flematti.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a acting lieutenant at this time for the Canton Fire Department.
And how long in total have you worked for the Canton Fire Department?
Hired in 2015, July 2015, so coming up on 10 years.
And prior to working with the Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you have within sort of the same field?
So in the same field, I worked for the Athol Fire Department for a few years. Hired in 2012, March 2012, until July of 2015. So just transferred departments.
And even prior to working with the Athol Fire Department, did you work as an EMT anywhere?
Yep. So I worked as an EMT for American Medical Response.
I'm skipping through all of his background. It's
Now,
boring.
as far as the sort of shift, how many people are assigned to when
Oh, he's still talking about process stuff.
I don't believe so. I don't recall. About midnight or so, and then snow developed since pretty much then on.
And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a call around 6 a.m., but just if I could take you back a little bit before that, over sort of the overnight shift, did you have any dispatches or calls that you responded to, say, after midnight but prior to 6 a.m.?
I don't believe so. I don't recall how many calls were prior to that. That one was kind of the key of the night.
So you mentioned sort of what, if any, memory do you have as far as like sort of when it started to snow?
It would have been after 10 p.m. for sure, but I'm not sure exactly.
Now, turning your
They've asked every witness about the snow. They really want people to think that this was a very bad blizzard at that night, like during the night when all this was happening. But it wasn't until later in the morning when it started snowing heavily. It was snowing, but it wasn't snowing heavily until like 6 in the morning, which is when they found John.
Pay attention to a little bit after 6 a.m. you get a dispatch for a medical call, correct?
Correct.
And just prior to that, what about time did you sort of get up, rise, and sort of start doing things around the station?
So shift change usually happens around 8 a.m. in the morning. It takes a while to get everything ready for normal business hours. We try and get the station prepped for public that come into the building or just people passing, going around. We try to prepare the sidewalks, the apron. So we get up around 5:30, if depending on call volume throughout the night. Sometimes we're up throughout the whole night. But we got up that morning around 5 to shovel, snow blow, salt the public walkways, that type of thing.
And specifically when it comes to the apron, that's sort of the area in front of the garage doors, is that correct?
That's right.
And so why is it so important to sort of clear off the apron as far as snow?
He's boring. What? That's a boring question.
Car 5 will sometimes go. That's the shift commander for the department, depending on the nature of the call, how it comes in, and the ambulance. So it would have been the 3 apparatus.
Do you recall who, if anyone, was in either car 5 or the engine?
So car 5 would have been, at the time, Captain Wendell Robery. And the engine, it would have been Frank Walsh, Katie McLaughlin, and the lieutenant for the engine was Greg Woodbury.
And you mentioned it took a little bit longer than without the weather to get to Fairview Road, is that correct?
That's correct.
If you have any idea of approximately how much time elapsed between the time that you received the call and the time that you arrived on scene?
I'd have to refer to the EMS report. That is going to be more accurate, but I believe it was 5 or 6 minutes.
And to that point, with any call, there's an EMS report that's prepared by, who is it prepared by?
So it's usually the person who texts the call or is in charge of the call. This was an ALS level call, so it would have been myself.
So you wrote as far as the report in relation to EMS arrival, and within that is contained sort of different times that things happen along the way, correct?
Correct.
And the times that are noted within that report, is that something that's noted as it's happening, or is that something that you go back and figure out at a later time?
So as we're going through the call and radio messages are sent, that's all documented on a third party that documents timestamps, things like that. As far as on-scene, transport, clear from the hospital, that type of thing. It's all third party documented.
Any approach witness, Ron?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 1. specifically turning to the seventh page and asking you to direct your attention to the far right column. Can you see that portion of the report, sir?
Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, what I played before you at the Exhibit 160, that's your report, correct?
Correct.
And on that right column, on the seventh page end, what, if anything, do you see with regard to Thomas?
So we have our dispatch time 6:06, en route time 6:07, on scene 6:14, at patient 6:15, and we had transported from that scene at 6:27, and arrived at destination at the hospital 6:45.
That destination hospital within Good Samaritan Medical Center, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, if you could, going back to sort of your dispatch from Station House to Fairview Road, can you describe sort of the path as far as what direction, what route you took to get from one to the other?
Yep, so from Revere Street, we would come out, taking a right onto Revere Street, gone to the end of that road, taking a left on Sherman, driven all the way up to Chapman Street, taking a right on Chapman Street, gone up to Fairview Street, and then taking a left on that. And that would have brought us down to the address.
And as you're coming down Fairview, are you familiar with that area?
Yes.
Okay. And so as you're coming down Fairview, is there any kind of grade or elevation to the roadway as you're coming down?
Yep, so as that is a downhill towards about halfway down the road, so a pretty good grade that's coming downwards.
And the address that you're responding to, the 34 Fairview Road, when you're coming from the direction that you were coming off of Chapman, is that a residence that's on your left or right or something else?
That would have been on the left.
And when you arrive on scene, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses do you observe beyond sort of what you've already described as it?
So we had the fire apparatus. There's another vehicle, bystander vehicle, that was on scene as well. I don't recall if police were on scene at that time, but.
And when you first sort of pull up to the scene, what, if anything, is it that you observe even prior to getting out of the truck?
So as we're pulling up to the scene, we see two female parties, non-uniformed personnel, that were going back and forth between the body and side of the street, back and forth. Looked like it appeared to be a female party that was pushing on his chest, and then going back and forth between the other female party and the patient.
And again, and so when you first sort of pull up, you're able to see the body on the ground. Is that correct?
It was, yeah, you could see a body, but it was very hard to see that distance away.
And do you recall any sort of like overhead or ambient lighting, street lighting, or anything like that illuminating in that area?
I don't recall.
Now, this individual, as far as the person on the ground, at some point you were able to subsequently identify who that was. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you identify?
So identification won't normally happen right at that bedside. That's not really relevant to initial treatment. We found out who it was when we got into the ambulance and were able to do a more thorough search once interventions had started.
So when you first arrive on scene, fair to say you're primarily or only sort of concerned with patient care, correct?
Yep, correct.
To the point you sort of tunnel vision to the patient, correct? Yeah. So you arrive on scene and you get out of the ambulance, and where is it that you go?
So we then go grab all the equipment that we're going to need to work on the patient, and then we bring that equipment over to the patient side to be able to start treatment.
All right. Mr. Flamati, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you, Ms. Tallali.
Jurors, that's it for today. We are not in session tomorrow. I remind you, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case.
All right, so she gives her spiel. All right, so that was day 2 recap, rewatch. We don't rewatch all of it, but we get the main points. So we heard from Officer Sraff, Officer Mullaney, and 2 fire department EMTs who arrived on scene. The officers only said that Karen said, "That's my boyfriend, is he dead?" We get to the fire department, and their story said, these guys, the fire department witnesses, all say that she said, "I hit him." So why are there 2 different versions of what's going on? I don't understand. And it does appear you kind of see a pattern emerging that people say one thing in their report, and then over time it expands, especially after talking to none other than Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in this case, who is also being investigated. There's an internal investigation for his misconduct, I should say, in the Karen Reed case, and yet he's still an active officer right now. But there's a pending investigation, which someone said something like, "Don't you think they'll leave the investigation pending so that the defense can't bring it up? Because if there's an ongoing investigation, it's not as likely that they'll be able to bring it into trial." But I'm sure they're going to try. I'm sure the defense is going to try to get it in there. If I don't know how she ruled on that. Did she rule on that? With all of her rulings were really kind of confusing. So I don't know, but I don't know. It's just interesting what's happening here. I think so far, for the most part, all of the witnesses have been good for the defense, except for maybe what's his face, but the guy that we just saw prior to this guy, the Timothy Nuttall. He was like adamant. He was John was wearing a poofy coat. We didn't watch that part, but I think I skipped over it. He was adamant that there was a poofy winter coat. He did say something about a coat and a sweatshirt that they took off, but there was no coat. And I don't even know if he had the long sleeve sweatshirt on or not at that point when he was found. His belt was missing. A shoe was missing. There was vomit and blood in his underwear somehow. So he must have been like hunched over and convulsing, vomiting, I don't know, all sorts of things that it's awful to think about. And then to just be laid out in that spot, left to die, it's terrible. What the individuals in that house did to John O'Keefe, Officer John O'Keefe. Hopefully, all of the truth comes out in this trial and the right people serve time for the actual for the crime, because it is a crime to take someone's life. It's also a crime to frame someone for taking someone's life. So I'm really hoping that we're going to start seeing some arrests soon. But again, I think the FBI is letting the Commonwealth hang itself. Give them enough rope and enough leeway to really solidify their evidence against the Commonwealth. As the trial goes on, we're going to see more and more in how the misconduct has happened. And yeah, hopefully, like I said, hopefully feds come in. But I do want to see more of this testimony. I would love to see. I'm so waiting for Jen McCabe. She's going to be my favorite one, I think. And Proctor. Those are the two that I really want to hear their testimony. You guys let me know in the comments below whose testimony you can't wait to hear. I'm definitely going to have to pop some popcorn the day that Jen McCabe is on the stand. I think it's going to be interesting. And I don't know who's going to call them first, the defense or the prosecution, because she's on both witness lists, I believe. And she's going to have to explain that house long to die in the cold. That didn't happen at 3 or at 2:27 a.m. Yeah, okay. Somehow they've outsmarted like all the Cellbrite and the experts that can interpret Cellbrite. Somehow these people have outsmarted it to make it non-credible by saying that the 2:27 a.m. search didn't happen when it clearly did, and it was clearly on Jen's cell data report. So that's what I can't wait to hear, how she gets cross-examined on that, the house long. What else do you guys want to hear? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to queencourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real, true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.